everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this Wednesday, and it's a special one indeed, because Bryson's Best 10 is back, and not just any version of Bryson's Best 10, but one that will last all the way up until basically wild card weekend, at least in the strict structure of Bryson's Best 10. My top 10 teams in the NFL entering week one. Yes, we do have a game tomorrow, which, by the way, I'll predict at the end of the show and give you, who will cover, if Kansas City will cover, if you should take Baltimore in the points, who wins outright. Predict that towards the end of the show. Carving up the context. It's a Wednesday, so carving up the context day. Going to discuss this, again, staying on this Chiefs-Ravens game, is that this game, and I'm actually recycling a segment from May to a certain degree, but it's relevant because the game is tomorrow. Tomorrow will, win or lose, shape the season that the Baltimore Ravens will have, positively or negatively. Matter of fact, it could impact whether they even make the playoffs or not. That's not hyperbole. I'll discuss that in about 30 minutes or so. Very excited to get into that. Also, getting into Tom Brady, who I think is going to do a fantastic job in the broadcast booth this season. Discuss that. I think Tom's going to be absolutely fantastic. And as well as Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, which I'll get into in just a moment. Hope you guys are able to chime in the comment section. Listen, I have been uploading videos like crazy lately, so there's a ton of new content on the YouTube channel, a lot of YouTube shorts where I'm breaking down each and every team, what I think they're going to do this season. Division predictions from our show on Monday. I appreciate everybody for tuning into that, our NFL predictions for the entire season, and I'm held to them, so very excited for that. Appreciate everybody tuning in. So let's get to business today. But first, some things in life, there are things in life that are so obvious that you look like an utter moron if you argue against it. For example, if you want to look in professional sports, Steph Curry's the greatest shooter of all time. If you argue otherwise, and way back in the day that used to be a thing, you look like a moron. You look like an idiot. Patrick Mahomes isn't the best quarterback in the NFL. It's actually Josh Allen, or it's Lamar Jackson, which evidently the players feel like it's Lamar Jackson. You kind of look like an idiot. Election was stolen in 2020. It was not stolen. You kind of look like an idiot if you believe that. And in this case, Caitlin Clark is the Rookie of the Year, and it is not even remotely debatable. So there was a tweet. There's been a lot of discussion about Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese going back a year and a half ago, and I'll get into Angel Reese in just a moment. But kind of what fueled a lot of this discussion, this revamped discussion about Clark versus Reese, is a tweet from the all-time legend, Lisa Leslie, who said, and I quote on Twitter, "I don't care what comparisons you make. Both Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark deserve the Rookie of the Year award. The pressure and the weight of this season has forever changed the WNBA, and both rookies rose to the top and exceeded all our expectations. Take a bow, ladies." End quote. That was her tweet. The great Lisa Leslie thinks that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese should split the Rookie of the Year trophy. Here's the problem. They are not having equivalent rookie seasons. Caitlin Clark has been miles and miles, and I do mean miles better than Angel Reese, who has had an excellent rookie season. But we could show you the stats right now. I mean, it's not close. All stats provided by our friends at StatMe's, all graphics provided by my guy, Alfred Parslow Jr. Caitlin's got Angel Reese beat in points. She's got her beat by a long shot and assist, of which she leads the WNBA. Reese has got Caitlin beat in rebounds, which not only does Angel Reese lead the league, she broke the all-time WNBA single-season rebound record, but Caitlin's got her beat in field goal percentage, three-point percentage, field goal or free throw percentage, steals, blocks, which is alarming given how much smaller Caitlin is, beats her badly in three-point makes per game, and beats her team badly in terms of team record. Caitlin Clark's team is 6-1 in their last 7. Meanwhile, the Chicago Sky are riding a 7-game losing streak. It's not close. So let's talk about Angel Reese, and then we'll circle back to Caitlin. I went back and looked at this. In most WNBA rookie seasons, particularly in the last decade or so, if you take out, maybe like an Asia Wilson rookie year, like some players like that, Angel Reese would win this award. If Caitlin Clark did not exist in the WNBA, the debate would be between Angel Reese and Rickea Jackson of the Los Angeles Sparks, or potentially Reese's own teammate, Camila Cardoso. Like these have all been excellent rookies this season. Cameron Brink would have been the discussion potentially without Caitlin Clark, of course, had she remained healthy, but she, of course, suffered an unfortunate knee injury. Angel Reese has been excellent. The numbers and the analytics and the data and the stats, and frankly, to a certain degree, the eye test back up the whole narrative about Angel just grabs her in rebounds to a degree. But you don't lead the WNBA in rebounds and break the all-time record if it's just that. Now, Angel does not shoot well around the rim. That's irrefutable. And that's, again, concerning for a player who plays her position at her height. That's something she has got to work on in the offseason. And frankly, I think she will once the Chicago Sky season is over. And I have been, my record says it. And go back on YouTube, go back on TikTok, Instagram, all the socials. Going back to April of 2023. Not only have I been an Angel Reese fan, along with the Caitlin Clark fan, shocker, you can be a fan of both. I have been, I don't even want to say Angel Reese's most ardent supporters. I think just defending her against what I think is an absurd narrative. The idea that, how dare she do the John Cena, you can't see me, and how dare she point to the ring finger in the national championship game against Iowa when LSU won the game. That was, to me, clear, blatant examples of sexism and, to a large degree, racism. And racism was really what clouded a lot of how LSU was covered. We know what the article about LSU going into the tournament this past time talked about them and what they referred to them as. Blatant, didn't even try and hide it. Angel Reese talked about after that the loss to Iowa in the, I believe it was the Elite Eight this year in 2024, how she had caught death threats and had caught absolute hell on the internet for things that had nothing to do with basketball, of which I came on this show, go back and watch, and defended her and said, my advice to Angel at that time is turn your phone off, get off social media. It's a toxic place full of disingenuous people who would give anything to be in your shoes, and because they aren't, they're jealous of you, and they take shots at you. Welcome to the internet. So I'm an Angel Reese supporter. Other than rebounds, she's not better than Caitlin at literally anything. Caitlin Clark, who I had two takes about Caitlin Clark not making the WNBA. I'm sorry, not making the Olympic team in 2024 to go to Paris. I said two things. One, I was proven absolutely incorrect on. One, I was proven dead right on. The thing I was wrong on is I don't think Caitlin's one of the 12 best teams in America. Wrong. I was wrong on that. That's been proven completely false. There are some nights I feel like Caitlin's one of the 5 best players in basketball. She certainly was one of the 12 best. I was wrong on that. Here's where I was right. I said at that time, even if Caitlin Clark is one of the best players in the WNBA, bar none, she should not go to the Olympics in Paris, France, because she needs breaks. She needs a break. She needs time off from the game of basketball. She gets a month off. And she goes from being a really good player. We could show you her stats before the All-Star break. She was really good. 17 points per game, 8 assists, 5.8 rebounds. Shooting percentage wasn't great. 40 from the field, 32 from 3, 89% for the free throw line. And the team record was 11-15. Nothing to go crazy about. Oh, but since the All-Star break, she's been on another planet. She's up from 18 points per game to 24 points per game. 8 assists to 9 assists. Rebound has gone down slightly, 5.8 to 5.0. Field goal percentages went from 40 to 47. Three-point percentages went from 32 to 38, and free throw percentage has gone up from 89 to 91. And the Indiana Fever have been the best team in the WNBA since coming back from the All-Star break because Caitlin got time off to take a breather. So did Angel Reese. And the Sky have not won since the WNBA came back from the All-Star break. If nothing else, a lot of times in these Rookie of the Year battles, what it comes down to is if the stats are if they mirror each other to a certain degree, which in this case, I just showed you, they don't. But let's just play pretend, because it seems like a lot of former players in the WNBA, such as Lisa Leslie, want to pretend and make up stats or make up this idea that Angel Reese, respect to her, great rookie year, is somehow on the same level as a Caitlin Clark, who's having, I think, the second greatest rookie season ever to Candace Parker. 4 times, that the Sky and the Fever have played this season. The Fever won 3 of those matchups. In the most recent matchup on Friday night in Chicago, by the way, in Angel Reese's house. Angel Reese went for, we have our numbers here, 10 points, 11 rebounds, 4 for 9 from the field. Good. I mean, not a bad performance. She was a net positive. And Caitlin Clark went for 31, 12, and 4, shot 8 for 14 for the field, 5 for 9 from three-point range, and left the game. Was pulled out of the game because the Fever were smoking the sky. They won that game 100-81. This idea that they are somehow on the same. Now, by the way, because I've heard some folks say, it's disrespectful to compare Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese to Magic Johnson and to Larry Bird in the sense that we know who Caitlin is. We know what she is, and she came in the league almost instantly 5-6 games into her rookie season. It's like, okay, there's Caitlin Clark, and now she's just going to a whole new planet. Is that Bird and Magic came in the NBA, and day one were awesome. Caitlin's coming in the WNBA, day one been awesome. Angel Reese has been really, really good. Again, Rebecca Lobo did a really good job. I'd encourage people to go look on ESPN. She did a really good job of kind of breaking down how the whole notion of Angel Reese has only juiced her rebound numbers solely and only solely because of offensive boards. That's not true. You can go back and look at that. What Rebecca Lobo said, one of the legends of the game, is that Angel Reese has not been as influential to the WNBA in terms of revenue, in terms of viewership, in terms of all these things as Caitlin Clark has been. No question about that. But she's had an impact. Okay, the most watched WNBA regular season game this year, to my knowledge, was a Caitlin Clark Angel Reese game. So this thing is very much a rivalry. You know what I always say about rivalries in the playoff? To me, I define it as this: you got to have multiple playoff, matchups. And one team or one player in this instance has got to get at least one. Angel got Caitlin in 23. Caitlin got Angel in 24. They won't face the playoffs this year just based off of seeding, but in the future, they very well may. So it's really unfortunate because you've had Cheryl Swoops get into a beef with Nancy Lieberman, which is just, it's not good for the WNBA. And I go back to something that I said early on this WNBA season, when all the controversy began as it relates to these particular players, is that the WNBA is starting to remind me of soccer and baseball. Very much, we are going to gatekeep our stars. You got to earn your stripes in our sport. And when a player like Caitlin comes in and bang, sets the league on fire, particularly since she's come back from the All-Star break. The Fever have been 6-1, and she's been excellent in that stretch. By the way, in the last 24 games, the Fever are, I think, like 16-8. They played really, really good basketball. Kelsey Mitchell, Leah Boston, Caitlin Clark, the whole crew. It catches people out by surprise. For the record, I think it's what Caleb Williams, I don't think the Bears are going to go deep in the playoffs. I think it's what Caleb Williams is going to do this year with the Bears. Like, traditionally, we like and I don't know if it's an American thing. I don't know if it's a human thing. We like life to be linear, right? You graduate high school, you go to college, you graduate in 4 years, you meet the love of your life in college, you have 2.5 kids and a dog, you live in the suburbs, white picket fence, and the natural, perceived natural progression of life. And life's complicated. It doesn't always work that way. And sports is complicated. I think Angel Reese is going to be a really, really good player in the WNBA. Many, many years in the past, she would win, rightfully, Rookie of the Year. But Angel Reese, Rickea Jackson, Camila Cardoso, Cameron Brink, has she been healthy? Not having seasons even slightly comparable to what Caitlin Clark is doing this year for the Indiana Fever. And again, a lot of this, I think, does stem from jealousy. There is clearly on both sides of this, not from the players. The players respect each other. Caitlin and Angel, they have mad respect for one another. But from certain portions of both of their fan bases, there's a clear racial divide here, similar to how it was with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. And it's unfortunate. Caitlin's awesome. Angel Reese has had a really, really impressive rookie season. They're not close. And frankly, they weren't close going back to college. Angel Reese was a really good college player. She's a very decorated SEC player at the LSU in college. Caitlin Clark is regarded on the Mount Rushmore of women's basketball players in college. There are levels to this. Listen, I can respect somebody like an Andre Drummond, for example, who was a great rebounder his peak, but he's not Steph Curry. We're not arguing Andre Drummond or Steph Curry. We're not doing that. Well, that's Caitlin and Angel. That's what it is. By the way, Angel, I think, is going to improve her offensive game. I think come next season, it's going to be like, oh, she's finishing better around the rim. She's not shooting 34% from the field. That's got to go up for somebody playing her position at her height. But even if she doesn't, Dennis Rodman couldn't play offense to save his life. And he's regarded as probably the best rebounder of his generation. There's a place for players like Angel Reese. And you can see the mark that she's making this year in her rookie year. She's not close to Caitlin. So, and listen, the unfortunate thing is I think it should be unanimous. Matter of fact, I know it should be unanimous. But again, there's certain things in life, if you argue otherwise, you sound like an idiot. This is one of those. Caitlin is the runaway Rookie of the Year this season. Patrick Brown, happy Wednesday, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the fall-like temperatures. It's been a little bit cooler here where I'm at, Patrick, but still is pretty hot outside in the middle of the day. But listen, the temperatures will begin to get more and more chilly. Football is upon us. I'll get into the Chiefs and the Ravens in about 10 minutes or so, 10 to 14 minutes or so for carving up the context. And then obviously at the end of the show, I'll predict the game. But to me, what it does, going back to this Angel Caitlin discussion, listen, we all have biases as it pertains to who our favorite at whatever is, but that should not run into objective facts. I talked about this with Gilbert Arenas, who, by the way, all of a sudden likes Steph Curry. He said Steph Curry is one of the 5 greatest players ever, and like a month ago, he said Steph Curry's not a generational talent. And my takeaway is it's kind of hard for a generational talent to be top 5 in the history of the world at something. But hey, that's Gilbert Arenas' take. But when Gilbert Arenas was arguing against Steph Curry on one of his shows a couple of months ago, and his thing was, hey, Steph Curry didn't get quadruple teamed like Allen Iverson. And on the show, you can go back and look. I literally did a montage of Steph Curry getting quadruple teamed time and time and time again throughout his career. We can all have opinions. We can all have different leanings, whatever they may be. That should not run into the realm. It should not conflict with what is objective fact. We've seen Caitlin Clark play. We've seen Angel Reese play. Don't insult my eyes. That feels like a lot of the older guard of the WNBA is trying to do. Now, I don't think there's malicious intent to that as it pertains to newer WNBA fans or someone like myself who's been following the WNBA and talked about it on the show for a while, but has covered it far more now with the rise of Caitlin Clark, is that this is what the NFL does such a good job with. You saw it last year with Taylor Swift. If you want to be a fan of the NFL, come on in. We want as many fans as we can. NBA does the same thing. College sports, pretty much across the board. Hey, let's join the club. We're all on the same umbrella. We're all rooting for the same thing. Basketball, football. Major League Baseball can feel a little country club-esque. Soccer, the same way. And again, the same thing applies to right now women's basketball. And listen, you can listen. If Angel Reese is your favorite player in the WNBA, I don't fault you for that. I love Angel Reese. I've defended Angel Reese for a year and a half on this show. That does not mean she is on the level of a Caitlin Clark and impacts winning and impacts her teammates the way that Caitlin Clark does. So there you go. All right. Transition to the NFL, but a topic that maybe won't get a ton of buzz now. It will Monday because there's a lot of scrutiny and there's a lot of attention around this. So Tom Brady makes his broadcasting debut on Fox for Cowboys and Browns on Sunday afternoon in Cleveland. And I've said this before. I don't have any sources with knowledge to this. I don't know Tom. None of that. I don't know anybody who does know Tom. Here's what I do know. Remember back in 2017, if memory serves me correct, I think it was a Raiders-Titans game in Nashville. I think that was what was it. And certainly the next week was, I remember this very well, it was a Patriots game in New Orleans where they were taking on the Saints and Drew Brees. And those first 2 weeks, social media was just starstruck. Good Lord, Tony Romo is... he's a natural at this. It's like he was born. He's going to become more known for being a broadcaster than being, I thought, a really, really good NFL quarterback. Tom Brady, of course, was not a really, really good NFL quarterback. He's the GOAT. And I think, what's funny with Tom Brady, and this is why I think he's going to absolutely blow people away on Sunday and moving forward. Tom Brady's life until he was 45 years old. So I don't know when Tom first started playing football, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7, something like that, probably before he turned 10. From that point on to a little less than 2 years ago when he retired in January or February, I think, of 2023. His whole life was dedicated to winning or losing. I'm going to do anything that I can to gain to gain the edge and gain an advantage over my competition. Well, in broadcasting, that's not necessarily the case. Yes, networks are fighting for ratings, but in terms of the top broadcasting crews, like Fox will beat CBS out if Fox has a better game than CBS, and vice versa. And NBC if they have a great Sunday night game, ESPN, ABC if they have a great Monday night game. I mean, that's how the game works. That's how football and TV ratings work. I don't think Tom's worried about the ratings. I don't think that's his main focus. I got to win the ratings. Tom can't help that. Here's what Tom can help. He looks around the landscape of all the number one teams in the NFL, all the number one broadcasting teams in the NFL. And he thinks about, okay, on ESPN, ABC, Troy Aikman is as established a broadcaster as they come. Aikman's been one of the best for a very long time now, 2+ decades. He's earned a name for himself. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, of course. Tom's like, I got to be better than Aikman. He looks over to Sunday Night Football on NBC, and Chris Collinsworth, very established. He was a good wide receiver when he played back in the day, and has been a solid broadcaster over the course of the last 2.5, 3 decades. And Tom looks at that like, well, I got to be Collinsworth. And then I think most importantly, actually not most importantly, second most importantly, he looks at CBS. My personal favorite broadcasting duo, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo. He looks at them. He's like, Nantz, we know Nantz is. And Tony Romo was a really good quarterback. He played all of his career happened while I was in the league. And since he retired and was broadcasting, I won a couple more Super Bowls. And I got to beat Tony. Tony, among this new generation of player turned broadcasters, has kind of been like the face of that. But most importantly, there was a lot of controversy when Fox hired Tom Brady to be teamed up with Kevin Burkhardt on Fox. The reason there was controversy, not just because of the contract that Fox gave him, which, hey, it's not my money, who cares? It's the fact that Greg Olsen in that booth was a natural. Greg Olsen is one of the best football analysts, in-game color commentators I've ever seen or heard from. The guy was excellent. And I'd love to see Olsen get a job at a number one job at a network sooner rather than later. I think Olsen's phenomenal. And there's going to be folks, I understand why, by the way, to say, yeah, Tom Brady's a way bigger name than Greg Olsen. But good Lord, Olsen was great. And Tom's going to have that same as always, that chip on your shoulder. When you've been slighted at times in your life, that never leaves you. Certainly if you're as competitive as Tom Brady, if you have any ounce of competitive fiber in your body, it sticks with you. And Olsen's still at Fox, by the way. So Olsen's still under that umbrella. He's going to say, I got to be better than Olsen. I got to be better than Romo. I got to be better than Collinsworth. Kirk Herbstreit, by the way, on Thursday Night Football. I got to be better than Troy Aikman. So the competition is still there for Tom Brady. Also, too, is just the simple fact that how did Tom become the GOAT? By not being the most physically gifted quarterback we've ever seen. I mean, that was the discussion for a long time. Like, Tom's the GOAT, but Aaron's more talented. Aaron is more talented than Tom. I think even Patriots fans would tell you, just raw talent, Aaron's way more talented than Tom Brady. But it was the intangibles that separated the two. Like, now, Tom had a better arm than he got credit for and was a master at moving in the pocket. But it was not making mistakes. It was reading defenses. It was always being 3 steps ahead of the competition at all times. Ray Lewis waxes poetic about the chess match, the battles between he and Tom Brady when the Ravens and Patriots used to face off back in the day. And so the chip for Tom Brady of wanting to be better than these other guys, because the thing is, the majority of these other broadcasters, Collinsworth and Olsen being the exceptions, are quarterbacks. Kirk Herbstreit, more of a college guy, but he was a quarterback. Romo, quarterback. Aikman, Hall of Fame quarterback. That's going to stick in Tom Brady's mind. And I'm telling you, and it's perfect for Fox. I think they did this very well, where they put the Cowboys on that first game. The Browns aren't going to move the needle. Come on, it's Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't move any needle unless LeBron James is involved. But they put the Cowboys on that first game. The Cowboys always get the rings. It's the only thing Jerry Jones cares about. Let's be honest. It's a big audience. Week 1, opening day, with Brady on the call. I'm telling you right now, not even by Monday. This is a social media age. During the game, second quarter, third quarter, halftime maybe, them tweets are going to be fired off by a lot of folks, fans, media, maybe even some players from here or there. Maybe Mahomes will say something about, dang, Tom's really good at this. So again, listen, this is not much of a story now. Certainly it's going to build up as the game gets closer on Sunday. I think Tom Brady is going to blow people's socks off as a broadcaster this season. And Kevin Burkhardt, I think, is one of the better ones in the business. I think he's phenomenal with baseball and with the NFL. Just with all of these circumstances, how Tom Brady got that job, the fact that they fired Greg Olson, to get to Tom, the fact that the other great broadcasters on the number 1 teams, most of them are quarterbacks, Tom gets to get back into a competitive field to a certain degree. Usually, you don't think about it that way for broadcasters, but it kind of is for Tom Brady. So I'm telling you, may not seem big now. I think that is going to be, I think I may do a mini segment on a Monday show with, of course, reacting to the other games around the NFL that, yeah, Tom's going to be doing this for a long time. He's going to be really good at this for a long time, especially because there's an added sense of competition. Tom, even when he was labeled the greatest quarterback ever, even at that point when we were all like, yeah, Tom's the GOAT, he still had that chip on his shoulder. He still felt like he had to prove himself. Why? That pick 199 never left him. It never left him. The slights never leave the greats, the most competitive people in any industry. So I'm very, very excited to hear Tom Brady on the call on Sunday afternoon, because I think he's going to be really good. And listen, Fox does, all the networks do a good job, covering the NFL. But, Fox's halftime show with Kurt Menefee, of course, an ultimate professional, and Bradshaw, and Strahan, Howie Long, Jimmy Johnson, I think Gonzalez and Gronk will join them, Edelman from time to time. That's kind of the closest thing the NFL has to inside the NBA. And by the way, something else too. Let me add this. You know who's entering the broadcast realm this year in the NFL with Tom Brady? Bill Belichick. Now Belichick and Brady don't dislike each other, but listen, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just making this up, but I don't think I am. I think there's a part of both of those guys, because Tom already proved he was far more valuable to that Patriots dynasty than Belichick was by winning in year 1 with the Bucs, for crying out loud, in a COVID year. That was all. And the Patriots went to hell the last 3 years with Belichick. But there's still going to be, the last 4 years with Belichick, rather. There's still going to be for Tom, not just be better than the other broadcasters. Belichick is not calling games, but he's got a podcast. He's going to be on Inside the NFL. He's going to be on with McAfee. He's going to be on with the Manning brothers. So Tom and Bill in 2024 are still in competition with one another. So for all those reasons, Brady's going to crush it. Brady's going to blow people's socks off on Sunday, Cowboys, Browns, and moving forward. Very curious because Tom is great at breaking down quarterback play as well, of course. I'm curious to see some of these matchups, some of these Mahomes games. It's gonna be. I'm really excited to kind of hear Tom break down Patrick Mahomes during the game, before the game, after the game. That's gonna be really fun to do. All right, staying in the NFL. Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, this segment heavily involves him. Segment we do every Wednesday. It's called Carving Up the Context. We introduced it about a year ago, along with Bryson's Best 10, which is coming up in about 12 to 15 minutes. Stay tuned for that. But it's a segment where every Wednesday there's a story, there's a narrative, there's a headline, there's a game. It could be anything. That there's I feel like a surface value view of that folks may not necessarily be looking any deeper into. And in this case, and I'll break it down in just a moment, this game tomorrow night, Chiefs-Ravens, is one of the biggest games Lamar Jackson has ever played in his career. It's one of the biggest games for the Ravens in the last decade. I'll detail that today on Carving Up the Context as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking about the opening night game between the Baltimore Ravens and the back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. So I'll predict this game at the end of the show. So you're not going to be getting any predictions from me in these next 10 minutes. But I said this back in May when the schedule was released. But before the whole schedule was released, Schefter, whoever came out, I think it was Adam Schefter, said, hey, we got Ravens, we got Chiefs, opening night, Arrowhead Stadium. Well, nobody was shocked that the Chiefs were hosting it, but there's a lot of folks thinking, hey, it could be Chiefs-Texans, it could be Chiefs-Chargers, Jim Harbaugh's debut as the Chargers head coach, and it's Mahomes and Herbert, who have had a lot of great battles in the past. But they chose Chiefs-Ravens rematch of last year's AFC Championship game, and I said on this show 4 months ago, and I certainly say it today, the day before the game, Baltimore got screwed over in a major way. And I say that as a Steelers fan who hates the Ravens, but they got screwed over. History proves, certainly recently, think about it this way. I'll break it down in simplest of terms. If you lose to somebody, no matter whatever the field is, if you lose to somebody in any competition of any kind, and it costs you your ultimate goal, and you have to stew on that, it just stays in your psyche for 8 months. And then you play them, you face off against them again. It's the first person you face off of in whatever field, face off with in whatever field. And then they beat you again. That's demoralizing. Now, the stakes may not be as high week one as opposed to the AFC Championship game. Of course, the stakes aren't as high. But your last two losses will have come to the same team. The first of those losses came at home with an opportunity to go to the darn Super Bowl when you had, in many people's eyes, the advantage, better roster, home field advantage, the better regular season, the better defense. Lamar was the league MVP. All of these things that were in your favor. And the moment looked a little bit too big for you. It looked a little too big for Lamar Jackson, for John Harbaugh, all guys that I love and respect. It looked way too big for Zay Flowers, who made multiple key errors. At times, the defense, particularly in the first half, looked a little bit too big. They played undisciplined, and that lays in your psyche. It's all you think about last season for 8 months straight, and then the first game of the season, you face off them again, and then you lose to them again. That's really demoralizing. And history shows recently it can be a death blow to your season. So if you think about it this way, we could show you the last 4 times that a team has played the team that they lost to in the playoffs in the first game of the season. Got that? So the last time, if you lose to somebody in the playoffs and your first game that next season is against that team that beat you. We can show you the last 4 examples, the last 4 years, and what happened, not 4 years, 4 times, and what happened as a result of that. So we can show you right there the graphic. So in 2020, the Chiefs beat the Texans, who they beat the previous year in the playoffs. That's actually when the Chiefs went on to win their first Super Bowl with Mahomes. Remember, they made that big comeback against Houston. 2018, the Eagles beat the Falcons, who they beat in the playoffs the year prior when the Eagles went on to win the Super Bowl. 2016, the Broncos played the Carolina Panthers in 2016, after obviously they met in Super Bowl 50. Keep in mind, by the way, in 2016, Peyton Manning had just retired. Cam had just won league MVP. The Panthers felt like they had a decided advantage, and the Broncos beat them. And then in 2010, when the Saints played the Vikings on opening day, we all remember Brett Favre doing Brett Favre always did in big playoff games, and that's screw it up. Through that devastating interception, the Saints win in overtime and go on to win the Super Bowl. The Saints played the Vikings opening day the next year and beat them again. What happened to those teams? Show you the graphic. Do we have it? All of them missed the playoffs. Texans lost to the Chiefs in 2019 playoffs, faced them, lost in week 1, 2020, missed the playoffs. Falcons lost to the Eagles in the 2017 playoffs, faced them in week 1, 2018, missed the playoffs. Panthers lost to the Broncos in Super Bowl 50, played them opening day the next year, lost, missed the playoffs. Vikings lost to the Saints, NFC Championship game, played them the next year. They missed the playoffs. Now, for those of you that saw my show on Monday where I predicted all of the divisions and did my entire season prediction show for the NFL, I have the Ravens in the playoffs, but as the 7 seed. My case is this. They're too good to miss. That's too good of a roster. Knock on wood, Lamar Jackson's healthy. If he is, that's too good of a team to miss the playoffs. Lamar, to me, is the third best quarterback in the NFL behind, obviously, Mahomes and Joe Burrow. But speaking of Mahomes, though, here's another reason why this is a just colossal game for the Baltimore Ravens psychologically and for the Chiefs. I mean, listen, it'd be great if the Chiefs won. It helps them in the quest to go for their three-peat and get the 1 seed, get a tiebreaker if that comes into fruition against the Ravens. But it's not devastating if the Chiefs lose. Chiefs lost last year. Chiefs lost last year to Detroit Lions. It didn't matter. They won the Super Bowl. All was fine in Chiefs Kingdom. Not the case for the Ravens if they lose this game. Mahomes and Lamar have faced off against each other, including the AFC Championship game a season ago, 5 times. Show the numbers and what has happened. Lamar in those games, Mahomes versus Lamar head-to-head. Lamar has 8 touchdowns. Mahomes has 14. Lamar has 6 turnovers. Mahomes has 2. Lamar completes 55% of his passes. Mahomes completes 72% of his passes. Lamar has about 275 yards total per game. Mahomes has 384 yards per game. Lamar's passer rating is basically average at 78. Mahomes has a passer rating of 115. And right there, Lamar has 1 win against Mahomes. Mahomes has 4 wins against Lamar Jackson. I've been critical of Josh Allen in the past for his playoff stats compared to Mahomes head-to-head in those matchups. Mahomes being 3-0 and beating him all those times. But I got to keep the same energy. Playoffs, regular season, with the exception of 2021, it really doesn't matter. Lamar not only has gotten outplayed by Mahomes, but has gotten outplayed badly by Mahomes. Now, I get it. Mahomes isn't on the field the same time as Lamar Jackson until the two shake hands at midfield after the clock hits triple zeros. I get that, but you know it and I know, we all know that there is a psychological impact if you're facing not only a guy you know is a legend or a woman you know is a legend, doesn't matter the field. If you see that person on the other side, you know who they are, you know what they represent, and time again, they get the best of you and is considered, rightfully so, better than you. That sticks with you. Sticks with you a lot. By the way, Lamar's been very successful against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's been very successful against the Cleveland Browns. Hasn't been very successful at all against my Steelers, but that's Mike Tomlin. If Tomlin could get him Dak Prescott at quarterback, that would change. But in those games against Mahomes, Lamar has not played very well. So it goes back to this. If the Kansas City Chiefs win this game, great. That's great. Start 1-0. That's what every team's trying to do this weekend. If they lose, it's fine. We lost last year. We won the Super Bowl. And by the way, it's not like we lost to a bum team. We lost to the Lions, who at one point held a 17-point lead in the NFC Championship game. If we lose to the Ravens, well, yeah, the Ravens have been thinking about us for 8 months. We've got the not Super Bowl hangover, but we've got the whole, hey, we won the Super Bowl. We beat this team last year. It's the banner, the pomp and circumstance, and we're the kings of the NFL. You could see how that would potentially get into the Kansas City Chiefs' mind a little bit. But for Baltimore, they not only do they have a lot to prove, their quarterback in particular, a guy who I'm a huge fan of. I love Lamar Jackson. He's got a lot to prove in this spot, in this matchup against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So, this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, this is a must-win game for the Baltimore Ravens. History shows recently, if you lose to a team in the playoffs, and then you come back the next season, and your first game of the year is against that team that you've done nothing but think about nonstop for 7 to 8 months, and you lose again, that can alter your season. In the case of the Texans in 2020, in the case of the Falcons in 2018, the Panthers in 2016, and the Vikings in 2010, it ended their season. That psychological advantage the other squad had over them, the carryover, stuck with them, and they were never able to get on the right track, and they all missed the playoffs. I don't think the Ravens will miss the playoffs. I want to be abundantly clear on that. But if they lose this game, I think it will be all they can do to get in. I think they do, just because they're insanely talented, and they have Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh. I think that's going to be a major, major story as the course of the season goes on. And certainly if we get a Ravens-Chiefs matchup in the playoffs, it'll just be amplified. It could really wreck the psyche of that Baltimore Ravens team. So this week's edition of Carving Out the Context, must-win game for the Baltimore Ravens. They have got to win this football game if they want to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish and go further than they did a year ago and gain some sort of edge on the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, again, for Kansas City, it's, hey, yeah, listen, let's roll the ball out. We can play whoever we want to play. But a lot of pressure on the Baltimore Ravens. There's no question about that. All right. This is one of my favorite segments. I'm so happy that we're back. I'm so happy that football's back this weekend. Football's back tomorrow. We got a game on Friday in Brazil between the Eagles and the Packers. They'll predict by the time that show rolls around. Got a lot of games on Sunday. We got a Jets-Niners game on Monday. It doesn't get better than this. In the words of the Harbaugh brothers, who's got it better than us? Nobody. So with that in mind, Bryson's Best 10. Every week, every Wednesday, I rank my top 10 teams in the National Football League. So without further ado, if we can get the background music ready to go right now, here we go. My top 10 teams in the National Football League. Here we go. The 10th best team in the National Football League entering week 1 is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So few teams have as much momentum as the Packers have coming out of last season. They start 3-6. It looks like the sky is falling, and then from week 11 on, Jordan Love plays like he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Between week 11 and that playoff loss to the San Francisco 49ers, Jordan Love, 23 touchdowns, 3 picks, passer rating over 100, and the Packers only lost, I think, 2 or 3 games in that stretch. They were excellent, and Jordan Love proved, and you saw what he got. They got the bag this offseason, proved he is absolutely a franchise quarterback in this league. The Packers receiving core, I think, is quietly one of the bigger stories in the NFL. You got Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks. They got a lot of talented guys in that group. Even though they lost Aaron Jones to the Vikings, even though they lost A.J. Dillon to a season-ending neck injury, Josh Jacobs is still a beast. We saw what he did in Las Vegas. And Marshawn Lloyd, I really like out of USC. I think he's going to fit the Packers very well. Matt LaFleur is a proven head coach in this league. I don't particularly trust the defense. That, to me, is going to be their Achilles heel this season. But the Packers are going to score a ton of points this year. They are the 10th best team in the National Football League. At number 9, a team in a very similar spot, momentum-wise and progression-wise, as the Packers, it is the Houston Texans. The Texans are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, CJ Stroud is a very trendy MVP pick, kind of like Jordan Love this year. We saw what he did a season ago, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, being able to lead the league in touchdown to interception ratio. Tank Dell is back, healthy, ready to go. You got Nico Collins, who's proved himself over the course of his very young NFL career. You add Stephon Diggs, who I think is like the 2nd or 3rd best receiver, given how talented that group is in Houston. Will Anderson on defense, Stingley on defense. I got a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball, coached by D'Amico Ryans, who's a defensive specialist, but has also hired Bobby Slovic, who's great offensive coordinator. The Texans got a good running game, Dameon Pierce. There's not much not to like about this roster. The only thing that held me back from them making a deep playoff run when I made my predictions on Monday is I still think they're just a little too young to make a deep run. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll be like the 2013 Seahawks and then just light the league on fire. It's very well within the realm of possibility. Love their quarterback, love their roster, love their coach. But their youth is the only thing that holds me back in the Texans this year. They are the 9th best team in the National Football League. At number 8, a team we just talked about a few minutes ago, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So we know Lamar Jackson is the league MVP. We know John Harbaugh is a Super Bowl champion coach, is one of the better ones in the NFL. But my only concern, as good as this Ravens roster is, my only concern is defensively. I still think they'll be good. Not quite as special as they were a year ago. Mike McDonald, they lost, who became the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. They lose Patrick Queen. They lose Kyle Van Noy, and they lose Jadeveon Clowney. They also lost multiple offensive linemen in the offseason. So these are key holes that the Ravens are going to have to fill. Odell Beckham also left this past offseason to go to the Dolphins. Zay Flowers going to have to take that next step. Mark Andrews, they're going to need to stay healthy. Derrick Henry, I don't think it's quite the acquisition that he was made out to be. He's still productive. He's still great. Don't get me wrong. But once a running back gets around age 30, they don't tend to get better. He'll be productive. So will Lamar Jackson. But I think the Ravens, again, I've got him as a 10-7, 7-seed playoff team this year just because of all the losses and the psychological edge the Chiefs have over them. But it's too good of a roster, too good of a quarterback and coach for me to keep them out of the top 10. The Ravens are the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, it is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. We know who Josh Allen is, bona fide top 5 quarterback in the NFL. A lot of folks are really low on the Bills. There's a lot of folks that do shows like mine that would not have them in their top 10, much less their top 7. My case is this. Josh Allen, that's self-explanatory. Even though you lose Stephon Diggs, you still have the best tight end duo, I think, potentially in the NFL in Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. You have the best running game you've had in the Josh Allen era because of an improved offensive line, because of James Cook, and in large part because of Joe Brady, understanding what he did with Joe Burrow at LSU, what he did as the interim OC a season ago with the Buffalo Bills taking over for Ken Dorsey, who was fired, really helped change the identity of this Bills team offensively and got them into that 5-game winning streak to make the playoffs last year. Defensively, yeah, they lost pieces. I get it. Matt Milano in particular. Sean McDermott's still an elite defensive coach. I have questions about him, if he's able to get the Bills to the next level. I don't have questions about his ability to coach defense, even going back to his days as the defensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers. So, for that reason, I do think the Bills will win the AFC East. I don't really buy any of the teams as a Super Bowl contender in that division, but I like where Buffalo's at. They've got pieces that they can build towards kind of getting back to that upper echelon, like top 2, top 3 teams in the conference. The Bills are the 7th best team in the National Football League. At number 6, they will return to prominence as much as I hate it as a Steelers fan. It is the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So, you look at what Joe Burrow's been able to do throughout the course of his career when he's healthy, which thus far has only been 2 years. 2021, he leads the Bengals to a division title. They go to the Super Bowl, and because of an atrocious offensive line, lose to the Rams. The next year, still a bad offensive line. Burrow has the best statistical season of his career. Jamar Chase is great. Joe Mixon. And they go to the AFC Championship game, lose by the skin of their teeth to the Kansas City Chiefs, who go on to win the Super Bowl. They lost Joe Mixon this offseason. Again, the running back position, unless you're Christian McCaffrey, is simply not as valuable as it used to be. The Bengals, the last few years, have done all they can to try and bolster that offensive line. I still like what they have in terms of having Jamar Chase, who he practiced today. It looks like he'll be back. T. Higgins is a Bengal today. He's going to be a Bengal this season. I'm not sure about next year, but he's there today. And defensively, Lou Anarumo is one of the best defensive coordinators in the National Football League. Zach Taylor is fine. He's a middle-of-the-road, average NFL head coach. As brutal as the AFC North is, it's hard to bet against the second-best QB in the league when he's healthy. It's hard to bet against a guy in Jamar Chase who's a top 5 receiver, bar none, in the NFL. They still have a ton of pieces from that 2-year stretch where they made it 2 conference title games and a Super Bowl. The Bengals are the 6th best team in the National Football League. At number 5, move the top 5, and I'm probably higher in this team than fans of this team. It is, if there's that many to begin with, it is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. Justin Herbert is special. I think anybody who watches him for more than 5 snaps recognizes that. Monster arm, accuracy, mobility, size, all of it. But he was held back, particularly a season ago, by not only an abysmal head coach in Brandon Staley, but an abysmal offensive coordinator, one of the worst in the NFL, in Kellen Moore. Yes, the Chargers lost Mike Williams, and they lost Keenan Allen this offseason. There's no clear-cut number 1 guy for the squad on the outside. Here's what I do know. Jim Harbaugh's taken over this group. What does that mean? That means the Chargers are going to be a lot more physical on both sides of the ball because that's how Michigan was. That's Jim Harbaugh's brand of football. He wants to run the ball. He wants to work off play action, take the pressure off a guy as elite as Justin Herbert is. And the Chargers, come on, they cannot be as bad defensively as they were a year ago, especially when you got 2 of the best pass rushers in the league in Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. I think the Chargers will be great. Jim Harbaugh wins everywhere he goes and wins everywhere he goes immediately. If you look especially the last couple of stops with the 49ers taking an atrocious, I should say atrocious roster, but an irrelevant team to the NFC title game immediately. Taking an irrelevant Michigan Wolverines football program to 10 wins in his first 2 years and ending his time there with a natty. Herbert Harbaugh will be one of the most lethal quarterback coach duos and combinations in the NFL. I think they're going to go all the way to the AFC Championship game. Love this team. Love everything about them. I love the culture. Give them a couple of years, and that team can win the Super Bowl. Maybe next year if they ace another draft. The Chargers. I believe in them. I believed a ton of the Lions last year. They came through for me, and I believed a ton of the Chargers this year, and I think they will do the same. To number 4, arguably the best roster potentially in the NFL, it is the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. This week was huge for San Francisco. You retain Trent Williams, who signed a long-term extension. He might be the most valuable player on your offense. You sign Brandon Ayuk, who... that contract could hurt San Francisco in the future. I've detailed that, but if we're looking just at this year, and particularly this week, week 1, it's still a loaded roster. Again, offensively, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey back from injury, Brandon Ayuk back from holdout, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, stacked offense and stacked defensively. You have Nick Bosa, who I think is going to have a bounce-back year in 2024. You have Armstead. You have guys... like Fred Warner, the clearly the best linebacker in the NFL. Talanoa Hufanga is going to come back soon from injury. The same can be said about Dre Greenlaw. Both guys I love, and we know Charvarius Ward is an elite corner in this league as well. I love Kyle Shanahan. I think there's the idea that he's going somehow in the hot seat this year is absurd. I like Brock Purdy. I don't love Brock Purdy. I think the situation around him, he's far better than Jimmy G. I feel like I have to clarify that every time. He's far better than Jimmy Garoppolo ever thought about being. That said, a lot of his reliance is on that Kyle Shanahan West Coast offense, on that supporting cast. And with this particular group, it's do or die for San Francisco. They have to win, not go to the Super Bowl. They got to win the Super Bowl this year. Otherwise, this kind of era is a bit of a failure. Not a failure, but a huge disappointment given how close they've come on so many occasions, because they're going to have to start stripping a lot of those pieces given how this Ayuk contract has kind of, not handicapped them, but put them in a situation where when they pay Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel's gone, a lot of pieces are gone. It's a do or die year for San Francisco. They are the 4th best team in the National Football League. At number 3, staying in the division, and a team I think is going to make the NFC Championship game, it is the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are the 3rd best team in the National Football League, and here is why. The only thing that held me back from picking the Rams over the Lions to go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC is just concern about Matthew Stafford's health. Because when Matthew Stafford's healthy, we saw what he did his first year after getting traded out of, at that time, a poorly run Lions organization, goes to the Rams year 1, wins the Super Bowl. Injuries halted his 2022 season, and in 2023, in the second half, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, those were your 3 best quarterbacks in the sport in that stretch. He's still got a monster arm. He's still as gifted a thrower of the football as we've seen in this generation. Cooper Kupp's going to be back, I would assume, healthier now than he has been. Puka Nacua is my Offensive Player of the Year pick. I think Puka is going to light the league on fire. I mean, come on. As a receiver in the NFL, as athletic, as good of a route runner as Puka Nacua is, as high character as he is, could you ask for a better coach in Sean McVay and a better quarterback in Matthew Stafford? I guess you could read him Mahomes, but that's not the case. This is about the 2nd best option there. Rams defense is really good. They have a lot of young pieces, even though they lost Aaron Donald. I love them taking the pass rusher out of Florida State. Their secondary is solid. Front 7 is kind of the strength of that group. And offensively, you got Kyron Williams to run the football, an improved offensive line over the last couple of years. Love everything about the Rams. My only concern is Stafford's health. They are the 3rd best team in the National Football League. At number 2, stand up. Who is it? Who is it?
Kneecap. 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 Kneecap.
The Detroit Lions. The Lions are the 2nd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. Listen, I'm a Steelers fan. I feel like adopted by the city of Detroit for my longtime belief in this team over the last year and a half. But this Lions team is loaded, top to bottom. Jared Goff, I think, is right there, the 10th, 11th best quarterback in the NFL. When he has a clean pocket, he looks like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And the good news for him is Detroit's got the best O-line in professional football. Penei Sewell, after Trent Williams, I think is the best tackle in the NFL. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, who had a great rookie season. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, the most underrated receiver in the National Football League. Jamison Williams is going to have his breakout year in 2024. Sam Laporta is going to dominate the NFL by season's end. Sam Laporta will be regarded as the 2nd best tight end in the NFL. He will surpass George Kittle. I think there's a possibility that he will actually be better than Kelsey, just given Travis Kelce's advanced age and stage of his career. But Kelsey will be considered better just out of respect for him in the Chiefs dynasty. Sam Laporte is awesome. This defense got a lot better. The Terry and Arnold pick in the first round was excellent. Love that pick by the Detroit Lions. Brad Holmes is a top 5 general manager in the NFL. For him to take a dead franchise in 2021, and by 2024, they're mine and a lot of folks' pick to win the NFC this year. Love everything about the Lions. They're going to keep the thing rolling. Dan Campbell, by the way, Ben Johnson, the best offensive coordinator in football. Them keeping him is really kind of what was that last piece, that last bit of belief for me to put the Lions in Super Bowl 59. Detroit, today, the best team in the NFC and the second best team in the National Football League, and that leaves number 1. It's a little bit anticlimactic. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So let's see. They got the best quarterback in the world. They got the best coach in the world. They got the best tight end in the world. They got the best interior defensive lineman in the world. They've got Trent McDuffie, one of the best corners in the world. Offensive line is good. They've got the weakness of the Chiefs last year was the receiving corps. Well, they had Hollywood Brown. Rashee Rice looks like he's not going to get suspended. Obviously, Travis Kelce, when he brings to the table. Xavier Worthy, I'm skeptical of, in large part because of his size. But as I've said all offseason, he's with Patrick Mahomes. He's with Andy Reid. They'll make it work. They'll find a way to make him work and make him a focal point of that offense. Now, Hollywood Brown is not going to play tomorrow, so that does factor into Kansas City as well. There's not much not to like about this Chiefs team. Are they the single best roster in the league relative to Detroit, San Francisco, or the Rams, the 3 teams that I have behind them? No. As I always say, it's a quarterbacks league, and no one on planet Earth has a better one than the Kansas City Chiefs have. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League. Before we get to our comments, go back through the top 10. So from 10 to 1, entering week 1, I've got the Green Bay Packers, the Houston Texans, the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Los Angeles Chargers, the San Francisco 49ers, the Los Angeles Rams, the Detroit Lions, and finally, the back-to-back champ, Kansas City Chiefs. So there you go. Check the comments. My man Jeff is active in the comments once again. What's up, Jeff? He says, I feel like the Bills could use another difference maker at edge or off-ball linebacker, especially with Milano being out. If I was them, I would sign Yannick Ngakoue for some more pass rush. Well, he's been very productive in his career. Remember his days back in Jacksonville. He was an excellent pass rusher. Von Miller's obviously getting up there in age. That I said then, and I certainly say now, that was a very impulsive decision. I get the Bills felt like they could win in 2022. Hindsight's 2020. But, man, that contract was questionable at that time. Von Miller's still productive, don't get me wrong, but he's certainly not Denver Broncos Von Miller, and frankly, he's not Los Angeles Rams Von Miller. So that was an odd pick, or odd contract signed by the Bills for Von Miller. Jeff Armstead, oh my bad. He said Armstead was released by us this offseason. He's with the Jaguars now. We got Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott to replace him, and we obviously still have stud Javon Hargrave there still. My bad, Jeff. I totally forgot about the Armstead thing. My bad. Jeff, Rams are not that good, bro. Jonah Jackson coming in with an injury. No Tyler Higbee to start the year. Lost Ernest Jones, their best linebacker, and lost Aaron Donald and Raheem Morris, defensive coordinator, to the Falcons. Fair enough. I understand where you're coming from. Here's what would be my retort. All the guys who got them to the point they were last year as the hottest team in the NFC prior to that loss to Detroit, they're also there. Stafford, Kupp, Puka, outside Aaron Donald, they're all there. And the thing with Sean McVay, we saw it with Kevin O'Connell. We're seeing it with Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings. I think we're about to see it with Raheem Morris with the Atlanta Falcons as their head coach, is that when you have these great coaches like an Andy Reid, like a lot of these guys, oftentimes they can just kind of replace them like crazy. Nick Saban did this in Alabama for years. Kirby Smart's doing it right now at the University of Georgia. I mean, Dan Lanning is a rough week 1 for Oregon, but generally, Dan Lanning has crushed it at Oregon. Georgia's offense hasn't missed a beat. It doesn't make Dan Lanning any less good, but Georgia's still Georgia, still got the talent. And I know it's college football, NFL football, very different, but I trust Sean McVay to put together staff about as much as I do anybody in the NFL. I mean, Zach Taylor came from the Sean McVay coaching tree, so I think they'll be able to kind of fill that hole in their coaching staff pretty quickly. I'm telling you. And by the way, does anybody in the NFL, with few exceptions, draft as well as the Los Angeles Rams do? I don't think so. Les Snead is as good as they come. mean, Les Snead, Brad Holmes, like these are John Lynch. These are the best general managers in the NFL. And I'll tell you what, Omar Khan's about to enter that group once he signs Dak Prescott. Ooh, boy. I'm just telling you, I'm going to have to sit tight for what's going to be a really average Pittsburgh Steelers season, 9-8 once again. And Dak, with no pressure at all, he's getting his bag. He knows he's not staying with Dallas. He knows the Cowboys aren't Super Bowl contenders. Dak's like, hey, I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to throw my 30 touchdowns. I'm going to win my double-digit games. I'm going to win my division. Yeah, we have a cap on how far we go with the playoffs because we're frankly not that good, but I'm going to take us there. Jeff, what about the injuries with the Rams and the defense has lost key pieces, not just Donald? Again, I understand that, but I do think the Rams will be able to replace those pieces quickly through the draft. They did a really good job of kind of addressing that very early on in this past draft. And again, few organizations, few teams in the NFL develop guys as quickly as San Francisco. And by the way, certainly San Francisco, but as much as the Rams. And by the way, part of the reason I picked them over the 49ers to win the NFC West, I don't really believe in Purdy as the long-term option in San Francisco, particularly if he signs a contract that will force them to move off certain guys. And not only that, but some of those guys in San Francisco, George Kittle is getting older. Deebo Samuel suffered a lot of hits. McCaffrey has an injury history. Trent Williams is getting older. With the exception of Stafford, the Rams are kind of like the Houston Texans that don't get the credit that they deserve. The Rams are the Texans with Matthew Stafford. Now, Stroud's awesome. I'm not taking shots at Stroud at all, but we know who Matthew Stafford is in terms of he's got a longer, portfolio of what we can look at with his career, and certainly more accomplishments just because he's played longer. He's won a Super Bowl. So, by the way, I saw something that Matthew Stafford's only been like a 2-time Pro Bowler or something like that. 2-time Pro Bowler, 3-time Pro Bowler. That really, really shocked me. I mean, I know in the NFC for a lot of his career, it was Aaron Rodgers and it was Drew Brees. That one surprised me a little bit. So, it just goes to show you kind of a rule in the NFL. A lot of your success, particularly at the quarterback position, is dictated on where you end up. Like there's a few guys where it's almost irrelevant. Andrew Luck ended up in one of the worst situations of the league with the Colts. He still got him to the playoffs 3 straight years to start his career, despite taking an unholy amount of punishment. And Andrew Luck was a generational talent. I think Trevor Lawrence, not a generational talent to the level that Andrew Luck is. But, I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars weren't a trash franchise. Year 2, he gets in the playoffs. Year 3, they were the 1 seed before he got hurt. And then Caleb Williams could go pretty much any and everywhere. The fact that he ends up with the Chicago Bears, like that's the rare instance in which a number 1 pick ends up in a great situation in Chicago. And it's why I think the Bears are a playoff team this year. And listen, that 1:00 window has a few games that are, I don't want to say duds, but kind of like that. Not games that you're just like, I have to get to my TV and watch that, other than the fact that it's week 1. But I mean, you look at the games in week 1, which I'll predict in just a moment. The first of which with the Ravens and the Chiefs. Again, Steelers-Falcons is fascinating for the Kirk Cousins-Russell Wilson matchup in new destinations. And obviously, I'm a Steelers fan, so of course I'm going to watch and root for my Steelers. Cardinals-Bills, it's not that compelling. Patriots-Bengals is just because Burrow's healthy, and I mean, we'll see what we see from Jacoby Brissett or if Drake May replaces him. Vikings-Giants, it's not really compelling at all. Titans-Bears is. Levis year 2, Caleb Williams' debut. It's in Chicago. That's fun. Panthers-Saints is darn near unwatchable. Jaguars-Dolphins, I think, is actually pretty good. Texans-Colts is solid. Raiders-Chargers. Listen, you got a team in Vegas. I think it's one of the worst in the NFL against a Chargers team that I think is one of the best. So that could be a blowout. The Chargers are favored -3. I would, not to spoil if I were a betting man, but that might be the one that I pounce on. I mean, that's free money from Las Vegas. Broncos-Seahawks, Cowboys-Browns is fascinating for a number of reasons. One of them, which I mentioned earlier in the show, with Brady making his broadcast debut. I think he's going to crush it. Commanders-Bucks, Rams-Lions, I think, is an NFC Championship game preview. And then Jets-Niners is a fascinating game on Monday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers coming back. So that will be fascinating. So very excited too. There's some good week 1 games. Oh, I disagree, Jeff. Jeff says, Purdy is probably better than, something in my nose. Purdy is probably better than Stafford at this point in their careers. He's bigger and more muscular, more mobility, and just as smart, and is so good at going through his progressions. That last part, Jeff, is where to me he far exceeds Jimmy Garoppolo. That and athleticism, that's the thing. Not to do like a mini segment, but it's something I'm sure I'll discuss throughout the season. Like anytime anytime I feel like Purdy maybe doesn't play the best or, the Niners lose or whatever, is it always, I feel like it's so funny. I'm a moderate politically, and I'm a moderate when it comes to Brock Purdy, where it's like the Brock Purdy fans are like, he's awesome, he's a top 10 guy, and the Purdy haters are like, it's all Kyle Shanahan, it's Jimmy G 2.0, he's Mr. Relevant, and I'm somewhere in between. Like, I kind of take some from both sides and make it my own take in that I don't know how anybody could watch this player and not see that he is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, they got to a Super Bowl, Jimmy G, just like they did with Purdy. The Niners got to a Super Bowl in 2019 and the NFC Championship game in 2021. And the numbers are overwhelming in spite of Jimmy G. Those 2 games to start the playoffs in 2019 against the Vikings, the Packers. Jimmy G didn't really have to be good, regardless. Just don't be a net negative. They ran the ball all over the Vikings and the Packers. And in the Super Bowl, listen, people get on Kyle Shanahan for that game against the Chiefs. But as I always point out, Chiefs are up by 4, under 2 minutes left, 3rd down and long at midfield. Beautiful route by Emmanuel Sanders. Kyle Shanahan draws it to perfection, and Garoppolo overthrows him. I mean, that's your game right there. And then 2021, he was bad against Dallas. He was awful against the Packers. They still won those games on defense and running game. And I think it's the Rams. Some of those mistakes were, and listen, in a lot of ways, they got bailed out. The Rams got bailed out by that dropped interception in the 4th quarter in Los Angeles. But listen, by the way, Purdy was bad through 3.5 quarters against the Packers, and he was phenomenal in that last drive. In that game against the Lions, he didn't play very well in the first half. Got a really, really lucky completion to Brandon Ayuk that really kind of turned the tide in that game. Should have been an interception by Brian Branch. The ball was caught by Ayuk, and that really kind of was like, oh, okay, the Niners are in good shape. So you had that game, and then the Super Bowl, he was fine. Like, I didn't have any criticism. Go back to my Super Bowl show, I didn't have any criticism of Brock Purdy in terms of, he played bad. He was fine. He was okay. Didn't play poorly. Didn't play great. So, mobility's over Jimmy G. Going back to those, your Stafford. Listen, I think Stafford's still the better player. Monster arm. Purdy's probably more accurate, but that's also, listen, he takes more, by the way, better arm than Jimmy G as well. But Stafford's got the better arm. He can fit it into tight windows more. I feel like you can do more with your offense with Matthew Stafford, even at this advanced age and stage of his career. And listen, there's a separation that Stafford's won a Super Bowl recently. So, yeah, I think Stafford has to be above Brock. But now if Purdy comes back this year and is better than Stafford, which of the second half of the season he was not, okay, maybe we got to have a conversation about that. Jeff, saying he's a top 10 guy isn't even the biggest compliment in the world, especially for a guy who was literally number 1 in every stat during the year and has been to the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl. And again, sort of my retort to that would be Tua led the league in passing. Purdy led the league in pass rating. Tua led the league in passing yards. So just leading the league in stat in and of itself, just alone to me, Geno Smith led the NFL in, I think, did Geno lead the league in passer rating 2 years ago? He led in something. I think it was passer rating in 2022. So there's statistically Purdy's excellent. And again, I think Purdy's about like the 15th best QB in the league, but it's really, really hard. Darn near impossible, I'd argue, to, just ask yourself this question. I'm on the upper echelon of quarterbacks. We're not talking about the back. We're not talking about Daniel Jones. We're not talking about those guys. The upper echelon, the top half of the league at quarterback. Which guys couldn't do what Purdy did? That's my case. Now, here's the thing. Knock on wood, the Niners stay healthy this year because I don't want to know this year. Next year, we'll see a little bit of it. And by the way, I'm not saying that the Niners should strip the roster bare and ask Purdy to carry them. That's not what I'm saying. I've criticized the Cowboys for doing that with Dak. So I think that'd be organizational malpractice if the Niners did that. That would be my criticism if they were to do so. But it's no quarterback in the league. You could make a case with Goff, but I don't think so. And by the way, Goff's been in a Super Bowl, been in one Super Bowl, multiple conference championship games. Is that I don't know what quarterback in the last 10 years has had the roster that Purdy's had with the coach that Purdy's had. So we'll see in 2025 when the roster is still good, but not quite as good. Jeff's referring to Garoppolo. He literally lost us that Rams game in the end of 2021. Yeah, he was bad. Jimmy G is one of the worst playoff quarterbacks there is, and yet he somehow was like, was he 5-3 or something? I mean, it's kind of or 4-2. I think he's 4-2. John, let's go Jets. Listen, I'll predict their game on Monday. John got mad at me. I understand why, for picking the Jets to miss the playoffs and literally repeat their record from last year at going 7-10. I get that. I get that. But again, old quarterback off of Achilles surgery who hasn't been good in 3 years, unproven coach in Saleh, horrible, a proven OC in Nathaniel Hackett, proven bad. O-line is improved, but still not great. Receiving core outside of Garrett Wilson isn't good. Mike Williams can't stay healthy. Now defensively, they're awesome. Can't say anything bad about the Jets defensively. That's their bread and butter. But I would say if there's more, and this was more in the conversation of being a championship contender, if I've got more questions than I do answers about you as a team, then I don't consider you a championship contender. Now, a playoff team, you can get in. I had a lot of questions about the Browns. They won 11 games, but the Browns have a great coach. That's my thing. Let's see. Bryson. Excuse me. That's not simply true, my guy. The O-line was ranked 28th in pass protection last year, and Brock didn't have an offseason coming off of injury. You put some quarterbacks behind that O-line, they would fail, brother. Listen, I understand that, but I'd say there are most quarterbacks in the NFL, given that offensive system where there are shots down the field, particularly to Brandon Ayuk, but the whole vibe of that Niners offense, the West Coast offense, the Dolphins run it, is running game, set up the play action, catch the defense off guard, which is a smart way to do things. So you don't need a ton of protection. Brady's offensive lines in New England were good. They didn't have to be the Great Wall of Dallas in whatever that was. I forget if it was the 70s or the 90s. I think it was both. But if you got Trent Williams blocking for you, you're mostly good. If you know your backside is protected at all times, you're good. You got clear passing lanes constantly. And then we got to move on to my prediction. Jeff, Bryson and Jalen Hurts had much more around him the last 2 years, and he didn't look as good as Brock last year. Well, listen, Brock and Jalen, I do agree, Jeff. It's neck and neck. Now, the thing that separates them is that I think Jalen's coaching staff is this last couple of years in 2022 is really good. This season, I think it's awful. Sirianni and Kellen Moore, yikes. Every time I say Nick Sirianni's name, my phone goes off. Every single time. Every time. It's unbelievable. Because I've got an iPhone, obviously, and so that triggers the phone. So anytime I say Sirianni, let's see if it does it again. Okay, my phone did not go off. All right. Okay, so before we get out of here, this is so good. There's a football game tomorrow between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. The AFC North champions from a season ago, the number 1 seed in the AFC, taking on, of course, the back-to-back Super Bowl. Get the background music going. Here we go. So Vegas has this essentially as a coin flip. They've got Kansas City as a 3-point favorite at Arrowhead Stadium. Home team tends to get about 2.5 3 points. So you have that factor. You have the fact that Kansas City is going to be without Hollywood Brown, who's out for this game. You had the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, there's the pomp and circumstance. There's the momentum and the excitement of getting your championship banner in Arrowhead Stadium, all those things. With the Ravens team, again, as I talked about in carving up the context, that is just stewing. All they've thought about all offseason is we've got to get back at the Kansas City Chiefs for beating us in the playoffs in the AFC Championship game at home. Here's the thing. Kansas City won last year in the conference title game when the Ravens defense was better, when the Ravens had more momentum off of a great regular season, a better one than the Chiefs had, and home field advantage in January. The energy in Arrowhead, as it always is, but particularly for championship banner unveiling night, is going to be off the charts. Patrick Mahomes comes in this season, I'd argue, far more disrespected. By the way, Mahomes is playing the guy that not only is 4-1 against, but the fact that, wait a second, my peers, the players in the NFL said, Lamar Jackson's a better quarterback than me? Look it up. Lamar Jackson voted the 2nd best player in the league. Patrick Mahomes ranked the 4th best player in the league. That's going to stick with Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce is going to do what most guys do. He's dating he's dating this woman. Now he's dating Taylor Swift for a year, but he wants to impress her. She's there in the box. She's gonna be, ready to go, supporting the Kansas City Chiefs, supporting her boyfriend number 87. He wants to impress her. He wants to show off in front of the whole world, in front of the Swifties. He wants to show up and show out. Also, the fact Kansas City Chiefs, of course, lost last year on opening night, largely because of drops to the Detroit Lions. So that's going to stick in their psyche. I think, again, history shows if you lose to the team that beat you the season prior in the playoffs, in week 1, you lose that team again, boy, it really screws up your season. I think the Ravens are cognizant of that. I think the Chiefs, to a certain degree, are as well. And as much as I love John Harbaugh, it's Andy Reid in September, which is one of the best bets in the National Football League. I've got a pretty comfortable win for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going to take the Chiefs to cover the 3 points and win this game 27-17. I don't think this Baltimore defense is going to be bad, but a new defensive coordinator, a lot of guys that were there a year ago that are not there this season. I think the Ravens are going to struggle out the gate. The Chiefs, with Pacheco, with all their new wide receivers, all their new weapons, will build momentum and win this game 27-17 to start the NFL season. There you go. So, Jeff is still pushing me on Brock Purdy. I love it. He said Jalen Hurts, has a much better O-line and a defense 2 years ago that had 70 sacks. He has never thrown for over 30 passing touchdowns, and nobody gives him the criticism Brock gets. I love Hurts, but it's just fact. Before I get to your second comment, Jeff, so I've always been a guy, I'll always admit when I'm wrong, always. And after that 2022 season going into 2023, because of the vast improvement I saw from Jalen Hurts, particularly Jalen Hurts' deep ball, I was like, man, he's going to get better and better and better. Now, bad coaching last year, and I think this year kind of stunted his growth. But here's the fact of the matter that I should have taken into account and didn't. Jalen, and this is why I get mad at people when they say Jalen Hurts is better than Dak or a lot of these guys. Well, Jalen Hurts went to the Super Bowl. I'd have to look at NFL history. It had to be the easiest road to a Super Bowl in the history of the NFL. Has to be. The Giants and Daniel Jones at home after 2 weeks rest. And then the next week, a 49ers team that by halftime literally does not have a healthy quarterback. Purdy, we know what happened with him and his elbow. And then Josh Johnson, a journeyman, gets hurt as well. They're having to snap the ball to Christian McCaffrey in the Wildcat. And the Niners were cooked by halftime because of the injuries to their quarterbacks. And now, Jalen, to his credit, was amazing. And that, to me, is kind of what separates it in many ways, Jeff, Hurts and Purdy. Jalen was awesome in that Super Bowl against the Chiefs. He made one big mistake in the first half. Other than that, what do you have? Like 3 touchdowns rushing. He might have had 1 passing. Jalen was awesome. So some even argue Jalen outplayed Mahomes. Nobody argues Purdy outplayed Mahomes. So that's kind of the thing that now, if your point is, Jeff, Bryson, so what does Brock have to do in order for you to believe in him long term and not call him a game manager? Is to see Brock Purdy against one of the top tier upper echelon quarterbacks in the NFL go throw for throw in a playoff game with the stakes again, with a less than ideal circumstances. Could be an injury to Trent Williams, which none of this I'm wishing, of course, but he struggled with that Deebo Samuel last year. Whenever a Trent Williams, a Christian McCaffrey, or a Deebo Samuel was hurt last year, he struggled. That 3-game losing streak was kind of what opened my eyes a little bit. The loss to Cleveland, that's 1 game. The loss to Minnesota was, I don't like that. And then the loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. That's to me what I struggle with. You missed what I said, Jeff. He said against Dak, every single matchup, look at the game and stats. Here's what I counter. Not a playoff game. Brock outplayed Dak. Actually, sorry, that one game was a playoff game. Brock outplayed Dak, but that to me was more because, and I say this is a Dak fan, that was the worst game of Dak Prescott's career, given the circumstances. Like that's the one game in Dak's playoff career where I'm like, everybody else showed up and he didn't. Like there's games where Dak hasn't played well in the playoffs and nobody else did as well. See the Packers game. Nobody played well in the Packers game. Everybody's to blame in that game. That Niners loss in 2022, I mean, Purdy was okay. I don't think Purdy had any touchdowns in that game. I think McCaffrey scored the game winner early in the fourth quarter. By default, he was better than Dak. Like I said, throw for throw. Jeff, okay, against Mahomes the Super Bowl first half. Okay, Matt Ryan was better than Tom Brady in the first half of that Super Bowl. So, that's we got to judge throughout the course of an entire football game. Again, listen, by the way, I don't think the circumstances will be ideal at all times for the Niners. That's why I have them not winning the division, because I don't trust the injury history of Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel. So I think we'll see at points, Jeff, this season where, because it was weird a year ago. By and large, the Niners were healthy start to finish up until the Super Bowl with the unfortunate Drake Greenlaw injury. I think we're going to see points this year, 3-week stretches where maybe somebody, again, knock on wood, but it is football. Somebody's going to go down. Another somebody could go down as well. Can you keep the team afloat? Are we staying afloat because of you? Not you and you alone. I don't want Brock Purdy to have to carry the team. I don't risk that on any quarterback, but you're the one leading us to these W's. That's what I'm looking for. But we'll see. We'll see that this season with the San Francisco 49ers. By the way, I like their advantage right now with the New York Jets. I do. I like the Niners in a lot of that matchup, but I'll predict that on Monday. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook. I said Twitter once again at the beginning of the show. Can't do Twitter. Thanks, Elon, because I'm not verified. I'm not paying a subscription for that app. Anyways, Facebook, YouTube, Grid Network YouTube channel, Carving It Up YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. We are on the road, hopefully, to getting to 5,000 subscribers. That's the next big goal. That's the next big thing that we're trying to achieve. If you have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow, and you get to be part of a great support group, the Carving Up family. It means everything to my family, to everybody involved with the show. So thank y'all thanks to those that have subscribed to Carving It Up. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. Neelan was sniffing the trash can earlier just randomly, and it was cats are finicky, man. They really are. They can be odd. So there you go. All right. I'll see y'all on Friday. It's a loaded show. We got Chiefs-Ravens reaction. We got Ryan Flowers may or may not be coming on the show. That's not a done deal yet. Would hope to get him on about midway through. We got the Vol View, and we got NFL predictions, baby. Bryson's Bleak Bet, Upset of the Week, and my favorite segment of all time. I'm refraining from playing the soundbite, If I Were a Bet Man. Very excited. So please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change in gun violence for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. It's an issue that impacts every single one of us on a daily basis as Americans. There was a shooting at a school in Georgia today. Dear God, we have got to fix this, y'all. We've got the opportunity at the ballot box this year. If any candidate on either side of the aisle shows little care in the world about what's happening right now in this country and what has been happening for some time, vote against them. This cannot continue. Point blank. All right. See y'all on Friday. A lot of football. College, NFL. We got a Michigan and Texas game of the weekend. It doesn't get better than this. Football's back, baby. See y'all soon. God bless y'all. Peace out. Chiefs are going to screw up the Ravens season. You watch. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.